All right. Okay. For realsies this time, welcome to the For the Love of Language podcast. I am Stacey the Linguist.
And I'm authentically EJ.
And we have a very special guest today. One of my good Twitch buddies, Lelling. Hi, Lelling.
Hey. Hello.
Hello. Lelling, would you be a doll and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh boy. Yeah. Hi, I'm Lelling. I am a streamer also on Twitch. And yeah, I'm just a queer person who loves languages and also loves Eurovision, which is why I've been invited here today.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Sure most of chat here knows. I'm looking at chat and I'm seeing that we've got a lot of wonderful EU UK people. So pretty much everyone here is at least knows about Eurovision. But Eurovision, EJ, why don't you tell us about what Eurovision is?
Yeah, so there's this Netflix film that came out last year with Will Ferrell, and it's not that.
It is that, but it's also very much not that.
I just had to make a joke as an American. So Eurovision is a song contest that has been going on in Europe for decades. There's usually 40-something countries that participate, and it goes over a 3-day period in May. So there's 2 semifinals and a final. And the goal is to have an original song from each country, and they're all sorts of different styles, from like country to hard rock, alternative, like every type of music imaginable, and fantastic performances. It's actually how ABBA became famous. They won for Sweden back in 1974, if I'm right.
Maybe. We have the expert here, so they can correct us if we're wrong.
In the 1970s, ABBA won.
Mm-hmm.
There's been lots of other artists who have become really, really famous from participating in Eurovision. So last year, the Italian group Måneskin won, and because of that, this year it was hosted in Italy. So that's a little bit about it. Netflix did run a comedy which came out, I think last year, about Eurovision. Which
it was 2019. But then like we didn't get Eurovision. I don't think we got like Eurovision jokes because they canceled the 2020. So it like took a year for the jokes to like settle in. But the Eurovision movie jokes were just like prime in the actual Eurovision Song Contest of 2021. It was amazing. Shout out to Finland.
Well, and the Eurovision comedy with Will Ferrell actually highlighted a lot of Eurovision artists and past winners who came on cameos and stuff. So it is actually a fun film, but the actual Eurovision Song Contest has been going on for decades. So it's fantastic. I'm personally a big fan. I lived in 2 different countries in the years that they won. So I lived in Finland when Lordi won, and I lived in Germany when Lena won. And so I was able to like go to one of the semifinals when Germany was hosting the next year, which was super, super cool. So I really love Eurovision.
I don't know that I remember you telling me about that. That's awesome. So let me ask the both of you, I guess. Why are we talking about Eurovision on a language podcast?
Well, I think there's a lot of really cool language things that do come up in Eurovision, just with it being a multinational competition. Like when you have 40-something countries competing each year, the competition is not restricted by language at all. So countries will sing in whatever language they want. Ukraine won this year singing in Ukrainian. Italy won last year singing in Italian. Lots of countries will sing in English as well, just for more people to be able to understand it. But there's a wide array of how different languages are used, how languages are mixed, different things like that.
Yeah. And also it's I think that it's interesting because there's like political reasons, and there's reasons where some countries might want to sort of legitimize their language a little bit more by sending it to Eurovision. And that's always something that's interesting to explore. or a country might want to showcase a minority language sometimes. So it's just, there's a lot. If you love languages, you will love Eurovision.
Yeah, this year was pretty ripe with a lot of native languages, and a lot of like high ranking songs ended up being ones that had native languages, which I am honestly a fan of. Like, if I want to listen to someone sing in English, I can pick literally like anybody, but Eurovision is a really cool way to highlight some of those things.
Definitely. We could, call out some of the performances from this year, maybe talk about some of our favorite, past ones, anything that relates to language with that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can also talk about the winner, about Ukraine a little bit, and about, I don't know if y'all saw the music video for the Ukrainian song. I was crying. I think this win was a very important one, like politically, socially, all across the board. And it was also just an amazing song.
Yeah, I did really enjoy Ukraine's performance. It was actually a similar style in a lot of ways to, I think, their entry from last year. It was also like a very traditional Ukrainian vibe, but with a woman singing instead of with male vocals.
Last year's was like a little bit more electronic too.
This one was more electronic, and it included rap, which the previous one didn't, which was really cool. There was definitely a little bit of politics, I think, that went into the voting on this one. Like, there were a lot of people saying to vote for Ukraine because of current events, but I do think their song would have done well regardless.
Yeah, although I feel like rap is still pretty niche, especially in Europe. I think that rap is generally a harder sell than in North America or in the States.
I would agree.
I certainly did not enjoy the rap part, but did you know that actually they were going to send a different song?
Really interesting.
They were second place in the national selection. And the winner was, again, female vocals. And she also rapped a little bit.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, the reason that she didn't come is that they have some rule that if you performed in Crimea from 2015 onward, then you can't go to Eurovision because like politically it's concerning to them or something.
Oh,
and she had gone to Crimea through Russian territory, which essentially kind of disqualified her, which I think is a little bit of a shame because the song was really good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but this one was good also.
Yeah. What I was honestly a little shocked by was the like 180 that the UK pulled. Where, yeah, I mean, I personally wasn't a huge fan of last year's or this year's UK songs, but last year the UK got 0 points. And this year I think they were at least in the top 5, if I'm remembering correctly.
They finished second.
Right. And I was like, wow, what a interesting little turnaround.
Yeah, I do think that it's difficult for the UK to do super well. I think there's the 5 countries that automatically make it into the final, and in some ways I think automatically making it into the final actually hurts them. They make it in automatically because the amount of like money and support they give to the Eurovision Song Contest, and like that's been the way it is for years. But I do think they actually lose a bit of the popular vote because of that.
Yeah, they've been trying to sort of make up for it, because the reason that they put it in is because there was a year at some point in the 90s when they started introducing semifinals that Germany didn't make it. And they had been the biggest contributor that year, I believe. And so there was a lot of outrage. And then they just introduced the big 4 and then the big 5. Which are these 5 countries that auto qualify. And then the problem now is that like people kind of often decide during the semifinal which song they already like.
Right.
So that's why if you watch the semifinals, they do like a 1-minute clip of these instant qualifiers in the semifinals as well, so that they sort of squeeze them in a little bit, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's very interesting. With some of the general politics out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about language prestige a little bit and what that kind of does in terms of like influencing how the song contest like works. So there is kind of like a good chunk of the songs are sung in English, which I think is very fascinating. And then we've talked about how there has been a lot of recent representation of other languages. Maybe Lelling, you can share some light about like why English is like a big one, and maybe what kind of drives a country to choose a language that's either in their native language or in English for their song.
Yeah, so again, some history with this is really interesting because countries pushed for this, for the fact that they can now do any language, because it used to be that you have to perform in a language that is official or co-official in your country. But then I believe after the period where Ireland won 4 times in a 5-year span, and it was always in English, countries were like, okay, you have such a harder time because nobody understands you, and most people understand English, but if you sing in Swedish or German or whatever, there's just, number one, there's a prejudice against a lot of Germanic languages that they sound kind of harsh, which I don't think is true. But yeah, they just said that they wanted to have like equal footing, and this sort of coincided with, you know, globalization. So that's one of those things where you just have like this cultural English sounding pop sound that is very recognizable, and it's way easier to have a song that people will enjoy if they can sing along with it. But nowadays, in the last 10 years, we've kind of seen that a lot of fans have been saying, can we have more non-English songs? But like you see that, I believe Azerbaijan has never performed in Azeri. They've always had English as their selected thing, because for them it's about winning, it's not about actually representing their culture. And that's a whole nother thing about the Azerbaijani, like the way that they handle Eurovision. It's a government like attempt at making their country more saleable to the West. It's not like the people vote and they love it and whatever. It's very much like, okay, we need to appeal to Europeans, Eurovision. But yeah, so language now is definitely something that a lot of countries that have been historically avoiding it, there's been a lot of like, oh yeah, let's represent ourselves a little bit. Like if you see Slovenia, there's a lot of, it's interesting because a lot of these smaller countries like Slovenia, we tend to associate songs in our language as backwards or in some way like less cool and more conservative maybe even. And we associate English with more progressive attitudes and globalization and, you know, being cool and sort of global and whatever. But I think that now we're at the point where we've started sort of looking at this and being like, actually, this is just linguistic hegemony. And maybe it's cool to challenge it a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because when like I was thinking about this just the other day, you've got the UK, Ireland, Australia, and I think like those are the big 3 countries where like English is the predominant language, and that's only like 3 countries out of 40. And so, you know, it seems from someone like if someone had like no idea about like how widespread English is and just like the insane globalization of English, people would think that it's kind of weird. Like you're not necessarily catering towards like the United States, which is this big powerhouse. You're trying to cater to like Europe, and yet it's interesting that you still use English. But I mean, it just goes to show like how crazy like colonialization and globalization really just like took off with English. The fact that in a Europe-centric like song contest, English is like the predominant language, even though like statistically speaking, English speakers make up like a small portion of like the amount of people involved.
Well, I would say native English speakers make up a small portion.
Yes,
but if you're talking
I forgot to
about,
add that.
yeah, just because, you know, I would say more people in Europe as a whole probably speak English than any other singular language if you're talking about second and third languages.
Right.
Yeah.
But that is super interesting. Kind of as an interesting aside, I think the main exception that I've noticed to this is France, which of course for other, socio-cultural reasons, France is very, very proud of their language. And so I think France very, very frequently actually sings in French or other languages and not in English.
Yep. And Spain as well. I think Spain has like the highest number maybe of non-English entries. I actually can't. When was the last time that we had an English Spanish entry?
Well, this year it was kind of bilingual. Like it was mostly Spanish with a little bit of English. But yeah, they do a lot in Spanish.
Yeah, it's a very popular thing to do as well for a lot of countries, as they will either have the refrain in their native language or vice versa. Like they'll have the song mostly in, like, I hate when we do this in Slovenia, we'll have like a song that's fully in Slovenian and then the chorus will be in English, because that's the thing that like you can play on the recap,
right?
And you're like, okay, then we can hook people in. But it never works, and it's always jarring and weird.
Right. Well, and also like with the example of the Spanish one of their main lines in English this year was booty hypnotic, which is also interesting because that's using a Spanish word order in English. So instead of saying hypnotic booty, it's booty hypnotic.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's other times as well when performers will sing in English, but the English will be like altered to be a little less, traditionally grammatically English. Like another example that comes to mind in like 2010, there was a song that was, I think it was around then. It was like, what for are we dying? What for are we crying? Instead of saying like, what are we dying for? And you'll sometimes have these kind of interesting turns of phrase. And I'm not sure.
Who is that again? Who what was that?
I'm going to look it up real quick. I think it might have been Latvia.
I feel like it might have been one of them Caucasian countries, as in for the Americans in the audience, when we in Europe say Caucasian, we actually talk about the countries that are in the Caucasus.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Latvia in 2010.
Oh, it was Latvia. Ooh, cool. Yeah, for me, the first thing that I think about if we're talking about like sort of adjusted English, it's probably gonna be Georgia's, what was it, 20 something in the 2010s, where she invented the word oxamated, and we just don't know what that means. She's oxamated.
It's a solid word though.
Yeah, it's a great word. And then also Verka Serduchka, of course. Me English nicht so good. Or whatever she says. It's just a great song. I want to see Russia Tumbai, which people said that it sounded too much like Russia Goodbye. That was the Ukraine sent that in. And yeah, Russia actually complained about that one because it sounds like I want to see Russia goodbye. And they were like, that's intentional. And maybe it was.
Who's to say?
Right. Yeah. And that's like, there's rules in Eurovision against the song being like political, which is why that can actually be brought up as a complaint. Like they don't really want that.
Yep. They sometimes they had to change the lyrics or the title. Like the Armenian entry 2015 was called Don't Deny. And the music video had like Armenian genocide imagery. And so Turkey was like, that's political, or Azerbaijan was like, that's political because Turkey hasn't participated. And they had to change it to Face the Shadow instead of Don't Deny. They did keep the chorus though, which has the words Don't Deny in it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Very common.
Kind of circling back, I was just thinking about this. A lot of, like we said, that Spain and France usually sing in their own languages. Do you think that being a part of the Big Five kind of gives those countries like like they can kind of just get away with singing in their own language. Like they're not trying to like force a win per se. So they just they can sing in their own national language. Like I know with France, there's definitely some more like there's definitely a lot more prestige or like pride in the French language, but it's interesting with like Spanish and like German, if like maybe it's having that sort of like protection within the song contest that makes them feel like they have the freedom to sing in their native language more. What do you think?
I think that it's interesting because when it comes to Spain and France, it's kind of a meme that like they don't care. They're like, oh, of course, France is in French. France is gonna do France, and we all know that at Eurovision, the scores are announced bilingually. This year they weren't, which was very shocking.
Interesting.
There's always the 12 points and so on. And everybody's just like, well, that's the French. They don't want to adapt. And I think that it actually kind of hurts them a little bit when compared to like a small country doing it in their language. The critics will usually be like, oh, it's so nice that they did it, in their own language. Kudos to them. But whenever France does it, it's kind of like, oh, there they go again. They cut us. They cut the rest of us zero slack. They're like, if you want to talk to French people, you got to learn French.
Yeah. It's very interesting how that like attitude about their language has kind of like permeated into the larger cultural scene in Europe, where everyone is just kind of like aware that like, France does things in French.
Yeah, because, for the rest of us, it's kind of like to exist on the internet or anywhere, we had to learn English. If I play a video game, it's in English. There's no Slovenian localization in video games. So I think all of us, especially Central Europe and Eastern Europe, the smaller countries, are always like, we had to learn English. So why aren't you learning it? Especially to France, which has this sort of reputation for being a little bit uppity and sort of like, no, we don't need to.
Yeah. So maybe kind of like sticking on this like globalization train, and we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but in future Eurovisions, do you think we can expect even more like native language representation, especially with like people like me, people who are linguists trying to like, revitalize languages throughout the world, especially in like areas in Europe where there is language death. People are surprised to hear that, but there is language death in Europe. And other sort of like revitalization movements. Do you think we'll see more of native language usage in Eurovision?
I hope so. I think that the recent years have shown that there's definitely interest in songs that are in various non-English languages. Like, I think if we look at the winners, we had Ukraine win twice in the last 10 years with a song that's in Ukrainian. And the first one, which was sung by Jamala, I think that was 2016, she won with Crimean Tatar. So that's even more of like it's a minority language that's not even like the big language of the country.
Yeah.
And then the next year you had Portugal win with a song in Portuguese. So I think that there's definitely a lot of, people seeing like, oh yeah. And I didn't check this like number wise, statistics wise, but I feel like we're seeing more songs now do better that are non-English. So maybe the trend might be sort of upward. At least I hope so, because that's one of one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I definitely hope so as well. Like, I think it's a fantastic trend that we're seeing now with so many winners from, different languages in the past 10 years. I do think there's going to be kind of a constant kind of tension in that decision making, though, because there are different things that go into that process. And I think it is more difficult for people to connect to a song sometimes if they can't understand the lyrics. I think there's things that we could do to counteract that. Like, a lot of the music videos that are posted online have subtitles. So even if you don't speak the language, you can understand it. I would kind of like to see that in the live broadcast of Eurovision to help
that would be great. Because I mean, they do have the lyrics ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we saw Konstrakta do exactly that with the Serbian song. She had a little bit of subtitling going on. It wasn't the full song,
Mhm.
but I think that because it was so conceptual, I think that it could afford to sort of do the little thing where, she put in the subtitles both for the Serbian and for the Latin parts, which what a
Really
wonderful
cool.
song. It was
Yeah, there
amazing.
was like a
Great
little
song.
bit of, if I saw correctly, I think there was a little bit of subtitling in the Portugal one too. I mean, it was in Portuguese, but they still had like words showing up, which I think is helpful, like more accessibility in general.
Yeah, yeah. I like Portugal this year as well.
Portugal did a good job. I
It was very
enjoyed that.
chill, but I liked it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's very interesting is it's also interesting to see which genres like do very well, because there is like such a wide variety. Like everyone's like, it's just all Euro pop, and it's like, no, it's not all Euro pop.
Yeah.
You get like a little bit of everything sometimes.
Yeah, that's one thing that I consistently see with people who criticize Eurovision. A lot of them tend to be people who maybe grew up through the aughts and maybe late 90s. And that's when they saw Eurovision, when they would watch it with their family. It'd be like, this is all Europop, which there was a period where it was mostly Europop.
Yeah.
And because of my streams, because I talk so much about it, whenever we do these watch parties to see Eurovision, you'll sometimes get these people who like have not seen it in 10 years plus, and they're like, oh, this is a lot better than I expected, or like there's
Yeah.
actually a few songs that I like, and it's like, yeah.
Oh yeah. I the way I like have my playlists on Spotify, this is just a little fun Stacy fun fact, is I chunk everything out by month. So I have a playlist for every month, and then whatever songs I find during the month go into that playlist. And in the month of May, it's just like all Eurovision songs. It's just like all my favorite Eurovision songs, and it's fantastic. But yeah, there's such a wide variety, such a really interesting diversity. Do you think, more just talking about like music in general, do you think that like upbeat kind of like party style songs or like really punchy ballads do well, or do like the slower, more like indie mellow songs do well? I mean, I'm still new to this, so I haven't seen some of the trends.
Portugal won a few years ago with a relatively slow song.
Like a moody song.
I think most of the ones that win are a bit more upbeat like that. Like the slowest one this year, I think was it Switzerland with Boys Don't Cry? And
Yeah.
I don't think they got any of the popular vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got 0, which is they shouldn't have even been in the final, but
Yeah, there were a few songs that I was definitely like, not a huge fan of that one.
yeah, very unimpressed. But yeah. Salvador Sobral, who won 2017, I think that song was also the first one in ages, like in 50 years or something, or maybe the first one ever at Eurovision that was not on the 4. I don't even know how to describe it, but like the meter, the tempo of the song, most songs have like this 4-note thing, and this one had a 3-note thing, which is more of but it's just very different from like what pop songs are, and it was very successful.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that I hope that we get more. Like it's kind of if you look at the songs that won, I think there's now a lot of up and down going on. I also think it's good that we had a rock song win last year.
Yeah.
And this year we had a rap song win. And even though I don't particularly care for rapping, I think that it's really cool, because that probably means that people are going to be more like trying to figure out what's going to work. Let's just throw different stuff into the contest.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a period where you just have like ballads upon ballads.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, having that diversity is really nice. And like this year, I think there was quite a bit of like good diversity, where there were like some party songs, talking about booties and stuff. And then I'm trying to think, I forget which country it was, but they had a beautiful, I think it was Finland. or Sweden. I can't remember exactly which country it was, but they had like a really pretty kind of like indie piece that was like a cute little, just like I don't know. It was more like something you would hear in like a small town, like like local coffee shop thing. And I was like, I kind of like that. Like that's an interesting vibe for Eurovision.
What do you mean, Lithuania, the lady with the
Yes,
bob?
it was Lithuania. I'm like, I know it's in the upper parts. I'm
Yeah.
remembering like the music video. It had like the house that was like floating around. But yeah, I really enjoyed that in terms of like, seeing more diversity in musical genres.
And then you also have ones like Norway's this year.
Yep, you do. You sure do.
Norway's, for anyone who's not familiar, was it was like "Give That Wolf a Banana." I don't know if that was actually the title of the song, but it was a bunch of
weird
people with like, I think they don't even know who the actual artists in the group are because they're always wearing these like wolf heads.
Very like Marshmallow-esque.
But it's one of those where it's like they're making a statement by being different. I feel like it doesn't seem like they're shooting for like the highest quality song necessarily, but it's the entire performance together that just is standing out.
Yeah, which I think is really cool. And I think is like, correct me if I'm wrong, Lelling, but seems like a very Eurovision thing to do, to just kind of like do something super weird and just like everybody enjoys the super weirdness of it.
Yeah, there's usually, the meme song. There's usually at least one song that's like, oh, this is the one that people are going to be like, Eurovision is so weird. And that was definitely Norway this year. And we also they didn't make it into the final, but it was, I believe, Latvia with Eat Your Salad, which I had only watched the like official Eurovision content. So when I was on Spotify and it had the little E and I was like, what's this E mean? It said explicit. And I was like, what's that? And I just click on the song and I'm like, oh, like the first 10 seconds, that didn't make it into the Eurovision version. Interesting. Yeah, so there was definitely a couple songs that were a little bit out there this year. And I always love to see them. I think it's cool. It's a good mix now. We've found the mix where it's not just like ridiculous songs, that it's not just serious songs that take themselves too seriously. It's a good mix of all of them. And
yeah. It's very interesting. Well, this has been an amazing discussion. EJ, do you have any last like thoughts or questions?
I would just say if you haven't ever watched Eurovision in the past, you can find the songs, the music videos on YouTube, and I think it's definitely worth watching some of them. It comes up every May, and I thoroughly enjoy it. We've touched a little bit on some little linguistic quirks and interesting things about Eurovision, but mostly the competition as a whole is a ton of fun, and I love the fact that we have something like that, just showcasing such a broad array of songs from different countries.
EJ and I kind of had this idea for this episode a little bit selfishly because EJ got me into Eurovision and we both really love it. And we're like, yeah, we have our own podcast. We could talk about this. But there are some really cool like linguistic implications that I mean, like I, as a linguist, am like particularly invested in terms of like how languages work on like a larger socio-political scale. So I think there's definitely a lot to look at. And I think it's a really cool event that I think is a little bit underrated, especially for those of us who are in the States. I think, like EJ said, if you haven't seen it, just try it out. Like it's a great way to see other cultures, other languages, and just an understanding of the world at large. Like Europe is a massive place, but like a lot of people in the US just don't know what Eurovision is, which I think is a real shame.
Yeah. Do you have any other final thoughts, Lelling?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing, that Eurovision is not just about the songs, it's about the culture. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about it, is seeing the diversity of language, especially when you get to see, minority languages like France's this year, or like made up languages, which I believe was 2003. Belgium got second place with a made up language. It's so nice to see a moment when like all these different countries come together and do something that's about art and about representing themselves and having a party together. So yeah, it's definitely I think a cultural institution.
Absolutely. Lelling, thank you so much for joining us and for coming and being our resident Eurovision expert. You're welcome back on the pod anytime. I've really enjoyed having guests on our podcast, and it's really great to hear other people's perspectives on some of these kinds of things. Is there anything you'd like to plug about yourself? Stuff coming up, or just anything that we should know about you, where we can find you, all that fun jazz?
Yeah, sure. I'll plug just my general stuff. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Lelling. You can also find me on Twitter. I believe I'm at It's Lelling. And then I've got a really cool thing coming up in June 18th and 19th. We're going to be doing a very special event called Tyria Pride, which is an event that I run where we do a pride event inside of Guild Wars 2, and we raise money for Rainbow Railroad, which is an organization that helps LGBTQ plus people escape state-sponsored persecution and violence. So if you play Guild Wars at all, or if you just want to watch any of the official streams, I invite you to come.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we are super LGBTQ friendly here. So thank you for plugging that. For everyone else, hi, I'm Stacey the Linguist. You can always find us here almost every Saturday morning, recording for the Love of Language podcast, and we release these the week after on the next Saturday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram at For the Love of Language. If you have questions or thoughts or ideas, or you'd like to just say, hey, I think you're nifty, or hey, maybe you could improve on this, feel free to send us a message. We're really friendly and nice, I swear.
Yeah, we really appreciate any comments and love hearing from our listeners.
And we really appreciate every single one of you. Don't you dare forget how amazing you are, everybody. Anyway, thank you all so much. And we'll see you next time.